Hey guys, my name is Francisco Hernandez, and today I'm doing another episode in my Building the Shot series, which is a series where I break down everything about one single photo and how I created that photo. I'm going to be going over this shot on the screen here of Erica that I actually took back in 2016 when I was still shooting with Canon. I just want to ask you guys real quickly, if you find this video series helpful, let me know in the comment section below, because it really means a lot to me that if you guys learn from it, and if you're not learning from it, then I'll try to focus on other content that will help you. So let me know, pause the video right now and let me know, or wait for an ad to pop up and let me know then. But yeah, let's continue with this video. Before I continue, I do want to let you know that this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people alike. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity with Skillshare. Skillshare offers creative classes designed for real life and all of the circumstances that come with it. These classes can help you stay inspired, express yourself, and introduce you to a community of millions. There's honestly so many classes on Skillshare that you can check out, including ones about photography, business, marketing, lifestyle, productivity. There's really a lot out there, so you definitely need to check them out. One class that I'm looking into is called Cinematography Basics Understanding Filmmaking Style by Zach Mulligan. I thought this class would be very interesting because I do want to add more cinematic looking styles to my own videos, especially with the behind the scenes videos. So I'm hoping that this video could help me out with that. Skillshare was made to learn, so there's no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow where your creativity takes you. At less than $10 a month, Skillshare is not that expensive at all, so you guys definitely need to check them out. Actually, if you're really interested in checking them out, you can use my link in the description area below, and the first 1,000 people to use that link will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. Let's go ahead and shift focus back onto this photo here on the screen of Erica. I took it back in 2016, like I said before. Actually, almost 4 years and 3 weeks ago that I took this shot. So I was really happy with this whole photo shoot. So that's why I wanted to make a video on it, even though it's kind of late, years later. I used the Canon 6D. I used the Canon 135L. That was my absolute favorite combo back then when I was shooting with Canon. And I used the lighting, the Explore 600 TTL, even though I did shoot on manual. So you can ignore the TTL part and you can replace it with the manual version of that light. Another thing that I was using a lot back then was my 5-foot Octabox by Paul C. Buff. I don't recommend the Octabox or the company anymore. I recommend different companies, including Glow by Adorama. They have awesome modifiers, 3-foot, 4-foot, 5-foot. So I highly recommend you check out their 5-foot if you find the light quality to look really nice in this photo and this video. So yeah, you can check out Glow on Adorama. One quick thing I want to let you guys know about this photo shoot before I dive into Lightroom is that it's kind of crazy because the model, Erica, she's a great model. She was actually represented by an agency at the time. And I did this photo shoot kind of without asking them, even though there's a little bit of a misunderstanding. I could shoot with her. But one thing that I want to let you guys know about is that, I'm going to ask you guys, do you find that her outfit and everything looks great? And the reason why I'm asking you is because her agency actually reached out to me afterwards, after I did this photo shoot, and I posted some photos, and they said she looked like garbage. There was some harsh words that they sent me, that she didn't look her best. She looked bad, that her hair looked fake, and I don't know, just a lot of stuff. I want to actually go through my messages right now to see if I can see those messages, because there was just a lot of stuff, and I felt crazy. I felt gaslit at the time. I thought she looked great. So let me know if you think she's great, or she looks great, or I took the photos that made her look great, or teamwork, So let me know. All right, so now we're here in Lightroom, and I do want to show you guys the very first shot that I took of Erica, and you can see that's definitely underexposed. But of course, this was a kind of a test shot back then when I shot with Canon. I didn't have the setup like Sony, where you can see exactly how the shot's going to be exposed before you even take the shot. You can still do it with Canon, but you would have to click the live view button in the back, the recording button, and then look at it from just the back of the screen. And I prefer to see it through the viewfinder, which is what you do with Sony cameras, or now with the Canon mirrorless system. But back then, they didn't have that, and I had to take a test shot to see how the shot looked like. And this is how it came out, obviously underexposed. Once I get to this point, I can either reduce or actually increase the ambient by reducing the shutter speed, or increase the power of the light in case I do like how the background looks like. And I ended up doing the first thing, in reducing the shutter speed from 2,000ths of a second at f2 at ISO 50, and went to 1/500th, which is 2 stops brighter. So you can see that. I don't think I probably left the light the same power because you can see that it's too weak here. So I didn't have to reduce it when I when I increased the ambient. Yeah, you can see that her pose looks pretty fine here. But then in this next shot, she's hunched over. I remember telling her to do that. I have her hunched over and I see that it looks bad. So then I ask her to not do that, to do the exact opposite and go ahead and, you know, arch her back a little bit, make it more straight. And then Erica was really great with kind of coming up with poses like this. And her hat was actually really nice because it allowed her to do stuff like this where she can hold it. And I'm going to kind of rush through all the different photos that are going on here because I don't want this video to be too long. And I actually do plan to, you know, I keep asking you guys to let me know in the comment section below. But again, I'm going to focus on you guys right now. I have all of the video unedited and raw right there on the bottom left. You can actually see that over here. I was thinking about kind of releasing that footage, maybe putting captions on it so you guys can see what I'm saying and stuff. I do want to kind of show you guys how a photo shoot goes unedited, you know, no clipped shots or something like that, how we come up with the photos. So if you're interested in seeing that, let me know in the comment section below. But aside from that, let's go ahead and continue with this photo shoot. Again, Erica does look great. So the only thing I'm pretty much doing is just adjusting my own settings. And you can see that for some reason, I was thinking I wanted to have a less background blur. So I reduced the shutter from 1/500th to 1/180th. And then I went from ISO or f-stop of f2 to f3.5. Yeah, so obviously you can see this is overexposed. I'm pretty sure I wanted to go for more of a natural looking environment. So I added a lot more ambient, but it ended up looking weird and too bright. And obviously this shot looks entirely overexposed, so I'm going to continue. Usually when it comes to doing a photo shoot, I try to look at a nice location or at least a decent location and try to pick spots where I could, you know, kind of isolate the subject and it looked really nice. So here at this photo shoot at this library parking area, I was really kind of focusing on using the greenery behind her to kind of block everything else, use it kind of like a backdrop. And this palm tree kind of was like a little bit of a prop to work with. So I had her there and then I was taking some shots. I do believe that I took this photo intentionally to show you guys how it looks like with and without the lighting, so you can see how it looks like without the lighting and then with the lighting. So let's go ahead and continue. You can see Erica did have a more of a serious face here. I actually prefer her with a smile, so I did try to have a little bit of a smile there, and then I went full smile, and then I just had her kind of just change poses. Here I'm at a lower angle, which is why you're seeing more of the sky behind her, and then I got at a higher angle, which is why you see more of the greenery behind her. And then I just continue to take some more shots here. These are all, again, these are all straight out of camera. I didn't edit these at all. And I'm actually really happy with these shots. And this shot here, I actually want to edit. So I might have that in an Instagram post when I release this video. So let's go ahead and continue from here. I did want to show you guys these photos because when it comes to a situation like this, when you have the sky that's really bright and the ground obviously is not as bright as the sky, you have to kind of decide which you want to expose for. So for this specific shot, I exposed for more of the ground, which is why the sky looks a little bit too bright. I want to say it's borderline overexposed. But in this very next shot, I did the opposite. I exposed for the ground, or actually the sky, and the ground ended up being too dark. So you can see, again, focus on this shot, bright sky, not so bright ground, and then even darker ground, and then the sky is exposed. And that's why I try to frame her there between this these two palm trees. So try to frame her there. And then I kind of just took a couple more shots with different poses and emotions. I do like this shot. And again, she's looking away from me and then she's looking at me and with a bitter smile. But again, you might want to focus on other things. Like for this shot here, I like it, but then you can see her hand kind of looks like an alien, like this, like if she's going like that. But aside from that, I do really like the shot. It's just those fingers that are just killing it for me. And then here, for this specific shot, you can see that the background, there's a lot of dark background, but you can see for the water, that's exactly what I was exposing for. So again, if I expose more for this greenery behind her, this water would end up being way too bright. So sometimes I'll kind of decide that I want to focus on the brighter area because there's a lot more leniency in terms of exposing for the darker area. So if you overexpose the highlights, they're gone. But when it comes to a very dark situation like this, you can always increase the exposure of the background. So that's why I kind of expose for the background for the darker areas more often than not. From this shot at 1/4000th of a second to the next shot, which is at 1/1000th of a second, you can actually see that there's more of an exposure on the background because of that change, that two-stop increase, 4002, 2001. Yeah, that two-stop increase in the ambient made it so that you can see more of this background here. But again, you start to get more borderline overexposure on the water that's behind her. I reverted back to 1/4000th of a second because of those bright highlights in the water again. And then I took a couple more shots. Actually, here's a shot without any sort of lighting. And then I'm going to continue, and you guys can see where I decided to take a little bit more of a headshots. And I actually really like this exposure because the sun was hitting the greenery behind her, which made it so that if I expose for a little bit between the greenery and the water at 1/3000th of a second, it was enough where I can get a lot of exposure throughout the entire image. And I was really enjoying this kind of exposure. But I took that one headshot for some reason. I didn't take another headshot, and then I continued and took a couple more shots there. I'm not exactly sure why I didn't choose to take more shots over here, where I preferred over here, where there's a much better kind of lighting in my opinion, and I went for a more dramatic area. My best guess is that because I was shooting with my friend Eli, we were kind of taking turns, and I didn't want to take too much time. And then I went back to taking headshots, and then the ambient got darker. It got a little bit darker out. So these shots are definitely more dramatic than those other shots. I'm going to go ahead and just skip a little bit through these shots. Again, these are entirely unedited. But what I am seeing about these photos is that the light quality looks good, and the background is not too dark as well. So in other words, what I can do with these shots is like raise the exposure like one stop. That's exactly what I just did. And then it looks fine. So that's why when the shot looks this dark, you can see that there's still a little bit of leniency in terms of adjusting the exposure, and then you'll be fine. Here's a really good headshot of Erica, and then I went ahead and just took a couple different other kind of compositions, and then I decided that I was gonna go ahead and stop shooting and let Eli shoot. And then I decided to again go back to the same spot that I was in the beginning, but instead of focusing of having the palm tree in the frame, I decided to not to go a couple steps away from the palm tree, and just kind of did my own thing here in this spot. Again, Erica really did help a lot with this shoot because I still am not the best at posing. So Erica having more experience with posing, different styles and expressions, it really did help. And all I had to do was really focus on exposing the scene how I wanted it and exposing her how I wanted it with the lighting. Again, Erica's a great model. If you ever have the chance to work with her, I highly recommend it. But yeah. She doesn't live in my area anymore. That's why you haven't seen any more photo shoots with her. I'm going to go ahead and skip through the rest of these shots, but I do want to show you them real quickly. Here's kind of a failed setup where I saw the greenery and I was like, let me use it as a little bit of foreground. And I just ended up not liking it at all. And here's some shots in front of the fountain at that library, which I actually am happy with these shots, but you can see that there's cars behind her. So it kind of ruins it. I should have gone either for a lower angle so that the cars don't show up so much, or like what I did here, got closer so that they're blurred out. So again, these are entirely unedited. I'm really happy with how I exposed for these shots. And then Erica was just kind of just adjusting the pose and her expression and having fun with it basically. And then I continued. And I do want to show you guys real quickly this other failed section. I was trying to go for a reflection shot, but it didn't work out. I was using a lens that I don't use a lot, probably using Eli's lens. It was a variable 24-70 maybe. But yeah, it wasn't working out for me. And I ended up going to this spot here, which ended up working really nicely and what I was really happy with. Something that usually happens when I work with a model is they'll be relaxed, waiting for the next shot or waiting for me to adjust my settings. And then that pose that they unintentionally go into might look really nice. So I want to say that's what happened here with Erica. Could be wrong. For the most part, that does happen a lot. So that's what happened here, I want to say. But obviously you can see that it's underexposed. But one thing I do want to focus on real quickly is that although the light on her is a little bit too dark, you can also see the background is a little too dark. So one thing I did in editing that I'm going to show you right now is I brought the level up 1.25 exposure. So when I did that, it brought the level of the light on her skin to a normal level that I would want to have it at, and the background as well have it as at a level that I wanted at. So in other words, both the background lighting and the lighting on her were at a level where it was good enough so that when I increased the exposure, it brought both of those levels up to a good level. So I'm going to show you guys that right now. So that's why I wanted to show you guys, because this shot right here doesn't have that adjustment. This one doesn't have it either. But when I got to the shot that I am going to edit right now, I'll show you guys how I edited, which is this one here. you can see that both the background looks nice and both the exposure in her looks good. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys exactly what I did. I brought up the exposure 1.25, the highlights down 20, the vibrance up 10. And one thing that was a big important thing about the background being the way that I wanted it was I adjusted the hues to be plus 40. So you can see at 0, it looks a little bit too warm. I wanted it to be, something to kind of make her pop more. So when I had the background or the grass behind her more at a warmer temperature, it kind of just blended in. So having that greenery to pop from made her pop out more from the photo, aside from the lighting, of course. So that's one thing that I did to that. You can see that I did adjust the yellows, and I did sharpen the photo just a little bit to 40, from 20 to 40. And I did correct the distortion, but left the vignetting. And one thing I always do with my photos is increase the colors. And the way that I do that is the calibration section, blue primary slider, the saturation slider, I bring it up, usually 60, but sometimes 40. And aside from that, I didn't do anything in terms of the adjustment brush, which is something I usually do. And I just went right into Photoshop and started to edit the photo there. So I'm gonna do that now and show you guys how how the edit came out. Actually, before I show you guys the edit, I do wanna show you the rest of these shots. Again, this is how the shot looks like, and before I increase the exposure, this is afterwards. So one thing you'll see is that the exposure is the same right here in these two shots. Only thing I'm doing is adjusting the position of the light, I wanna say. In this shot here, I went from more of having the light on the side of her, which is why you're seeing more shadow on the side of her nose, to being more in front of her, which is why you're seeing less shadow on the side of her face. And then in these different shots here, I was adjusting the settings. You can see I was at 1/750th of a second to 1/180th of a second, because what I was feeling at the time was that background was being too dark. I wasn't anticipating adjusting the exposure in post. So then I just adjusted the lighting or the shutter so that it can see more of that background. But then obviously you can see the light on her is way too bright. Then I reduced the lighting on her, and now it's way too dark. And then I was not really happy with these shots because it doesn't really pop like the other shot did. So these are kind of like my failed afterthought shots. I was happy with the dramatic lighting in these shots, and then these more natural shots is what I was failing to achieve. So I'm glad that I was able to adjust this darker shot into a more natural looking shot. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and I'm gonna go ahead and just do my best to break down each of these different layers. I did label them so you guys can see what exactly they're doing. And one of the things I do first whenever it comes to Photoshop editing is I'll remove distractions. And before I forget, I did want to mention that this edit is not that extensive at all, really. Nowadays, I will do a lot more dodge and burn and frequency separation to remove wrinkles and different things that are bugging me. But for this one back in the day, in 2016, it wasn't really like, because I was editing for YouTube and editing like 10 to 15 shots for you guys for behind the scenes videos, I tried to keep my editing very minimal. So that's exactly what you're gonna see in this edit. I removed distractions. You can see the back of her hair and these little things on the ground, but I removed distractions. And then another thing that I can barely see on the screen, so I don't expect you guys to see it, is I just did a little bit of burn, lowered the exposure of just these highlights here on her arm and a little bit on her cheeks. So that's what's pretty much going on in this shot here. I can't even see it to you, so I don't know why I did that. Then I brightened just her and a little bit of the greenery behind her. And the reason why I did that is because I want her to kind of stand out from the shot and not just blend in with it. So one thing I usually do in terms of editing is I'll kind of just add a little bit of exposure just in like a circular area on the subject. And that's what went on here. You guys can see before and after. The next thing I did was, back then when I was editing, one thing I was really interested is kind of making the colors kind of, unifying the colors a bit. And the way that I did that was adding an adjustment layer of just solid color or color fill. And I just added a color, which was this brown here. And then I reduced the opacities to 6%. You can see at 100%, it's way too colorful. It's not looking natural at all. So I had it at 6%. And then I added a photo filter to add a little bit of warmth to the image. And then I added a little bit of contrast, which if you guys have seen my videos before, you know that I do by adding a levels adjustment layer, which kind of darkens the colors and makes them more rich, but also darkens the exposure of the image. And then I brightened it. So here's before with the levels adjustment, and then brightened it just a little bit. And then I added a vibrance to the entire shot. But when I add vibrance to the shot, usually it makes the skin too saturated. So you can see that I used the mask to kind of remove the saturation from just her skin on her legs and her arms and her face. I think I mentioned that the person who was representing Erica at the time said that her hair didn't look good. And I want to say it's because Erica does have extensions here. So one thing that was going on here in this extensions is that it looked like there's like a lot less color there. So one thing I did was I sampled the color from the hair that, the area that is saturated, painted it over, and then changed the blending mode to color, which is something I do always whenever I see like an uneven kind of colors throughout either the skin or some surrounding area. And that's what I did to that hair. But I felt like it was a little too oversaturated in some areas, so I reduced the saturation. And then I thought that it looked normal there, but actually looking at it now, I feel like there's a different area of saturation here. So I'd probably unify it if I were to re-edit the shot. Then I went ahead and adjusted the colors with color balance before and after. And I think it's a huge difference. You might not see it, but it actually is a big difference in terms of how the mood of the feeling, or the mood that I have when I see the shot, it's better. So that doesn't even sound like I explained it right, but it just looks better to the photo. So let's go ahead and go to the next thing, which is frequency separation. You can see it's very, very minimal. I just added a little bit of smoothness to her skin here and on her arms and her cheeks. So this is before, and here's after. And then the last thing I did was add more brightness to her, and then kind of darken those highlights on her skin because I felt like they were a little too bright. And then remove some last distractions on her hair. And that's pretty much it. I don't want to waste any more of your time, but again, if you guys find this series very helpful, let me know in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the very next video. I hope you enjoyed this one. All right, take care.